And our next guest is a licensed therapist and a mental health expert, Dr. George James. Dr. James, welcome to The Odd Couple.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Rod. Pleasure to be with you both. Thanks for having me on.
Nah, man, it's great to have you, and what a time. It's a perfect day for it. We watched, you watched, I'm sure, Simone Biles and her press conference, and you know how she pulled out of her Olympic, at least that competition. And she talked a lot about how stressed she was and how stressful this situation is she was talking in the athletic context. How do you know the difference between the typical stress and pressure that I would imagine every athlete feels at the highest levels, right? Professional or Olympic or whatever it may be, versus a real mental health issue? I mean, I guess you could say that's all mental health, but how do you tell the difference between a situation where they shouldn't be competing versus one where, I feel the pressure, I feel the heat, I'm stressed, but I got to go out there and perform? Like, how do you tell the difference?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And, you all know, with athletes you talk to and work with and things that you've done, that most athletes have a routine, have a rhythm, have a way to kind of push through whatever adversity there is, whether it be physical injury or mental health injury or mental health concern, that the things they do, the warm up, how they get themselves hyped. And I think that when you know that there's significant issues, that when you do the things that you normally do, when you check all the things that you normally check, and you still can't get yourself to the place where you need to, or you still feel off, or those thoughts feel louder in your head, and you can't quiet those thoughts to allow yourself to perform, that's when you know the mental health or mental struggle is greater than whatever you might be dealing with.
So what you saw with Simone Biles, like, what was your take on, what went down at the press conference today and her pulling out? On one level, I'm proud of her. I want to give her a lot of props and credit, because it takes a lot to go before the world and say, you know what, I needed to just take a step back for myself, for the team, for the country, because I wasn't in the right space. And I think that we've been seeing more athletes use their platform, use their voices to say, look, some things are not right, whether with me or the circumstance, and I need to take a step back. And so I was grateful that she was able to do that. I also felt for her because, just think about it. I mean, I can never imagine what it means to be on such a high stage like she has been for so many years, with so many people expecting her to come out with multiple gold medals. And, between social media, between the world, between the U.S. Impact, is just a lot of pressure. And it's not that easy to just brush that off. And so I think she highlighted what so many athletes go through, and what we see, some athletes would do is that it'd just be poor performance. But she just didn't want to put herself in that position.
Oh, the only issue I have is that how come people aren't bowing out when they win? The stress of it or the pressure. It's always after a poor performance or when they're losing or they lost. That's where I have an issue with it. We all feel stress in everything we do, a part of our lives. Can you help me with that? Why do you think it's only when things are going bad that stress does stress not happen during, even when you're winning or playing well? There's no stress there?
No, there's stress on both winning and losing. But, in sports, right, there's momentum, right? When you're winning or you're coming back or you're doing some good things, you start to feel that. And sometimes that can really help to counter whatever stress that you might be feeling. But on the flip, when you're losing or when now things are not going so well, the intensity increases. And like I said, some athletes are able to get to the place where they have a routine or process to help them through that. But truthfully, many athletes have not been dealing with their mental health or mental wellness to really help them deal with it. I mean, Simone even said today about she needs to work on her mindfulness. So I think that's part of her game that she has to work on and improve. But a lot of athletes, when you get to the bad times, it intensifies and becomes overwhelming and impacts your performance.
Doc, a lot of people feel like these things, rightly or wrongly, that these are becoming excuses. Where an athlete just is facing the typical stress and pressure that all athletes have felt. And let's be honest, we've celebrated athletes for being able to play through the pressure and
make the big play,
and
the
things
big
like
shot.
that.
Right.
Yeah. What do you say to those? Yeah. What do you say to those that feel like, because we haven't really seen athletes pull out of events like we seem to be seeing today. What do you say to those who would say, what is going on? Like, athletes, if this is part of the game, that you fight through this stuff, and if you can't fight through it, it just is what it is. You have a bad performance, you lose, whatever, and you live on. But these are people perceiving these as excuses.
Yeah, I can understand how people see that, because a lot of people are not fully aware for themselves or even for athletes all the things that are going on. Like when we talk about anxiety, people just throw that word around, but not recognizing how it can really be crippling to somebody, paralyze someone. But I get it. I hear what you're saying in terms of like how we've celebrated, we've given people like credit for pushing through. And
right.
One of the things, once again, is we talked about mental toughness for a lot of athletes, is their ability to push through some of that. I think it's both. The ability, because they're great athletes. We're going to see Naomi come back and do great things. We're going to see Simone go on to do great things. So it's not like they're just not going to do it, but being able to admit where they are in this particular moment. So I think it's getting the skills necessary, because many athletes, once again, have ignored the mental side of it. And some of those athletes who pushed on, outside of the game, they've had other issues, whether alcohol, drugs, family,
right.
other things that have now blown up because they didn't take care of their mental health.
Well, no, Osaka, like her situation seems like she only seems to have anxiety, when she loses or doesn't play well, and then has to talk to the media. If she wins, again, this is why I just have and I'm not here. I'm not a doctor. I'm not diagnosing anybody. I'm not being flipped with with what they say. If somebody says that they don't feel well or they're hurt or they're feeling stressed, I'm going to take them at their word. But it just doesn't feel right. For the other people looking from the outside, going, okay, she lost, so she's going to duck out and not talk to the media today, and use that as mentally she can't cope. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, is there a happy medium?
I hear you, and I think like some of it is that we don't always have the full story. We don't always know how long has this been going on, what have they been doing, and once again, how are they getting help? Like, just recently, Aaron Rodgers comes out talking about his bouts with depression. Right? We don't know what he was going through or how he really dealt with it, but he finally is really talking about it. And so I think the same thing with like Naomi. We're just now starting to hear what is going on. And she's sharing this, that it might be more intense during those losing times or when there's a lot of push or pressure or intensity. But we don't know if it's also during the winning times. She just might not have shared that. So I think like it would be great to have the full story, but sometimes we don't. We only have like sound bites of what's going on.
When we hear the term mental health, I think most of us, maybe just because of the way society's been, we think of the worst, right? Like they're really, you think of the worst, depression or worse than that. But I've heard some people say, and I kind of agree with this, what if there's also a term mental fitness? Because we have physical fitness, like we expect the players on the teams and the professional athletes to get physical fitness trainers. What about do you think it's to the point where teams and professional athletes need to have mental fitness coaches that help them get, we know people have had sports psychologists and things like that, but teams need to have mental fitness coaches to help them perform to the best of their ability, handle whatever stresses and pressures they may be feeling. And that's almost like a separate category than mental health, because mental health, to me, when I hear that, I'm like, okay, they really need to go maybe be in a hospital and not be playing sports at all right now. Mental fitness to me feels a whole lot different.
Hey, Chris, I'm right there with you, and there's something I've been encouraging and campaigning for a long time. I think that yeah, when we hear mental health, a lot of times we think about illness and disorder. We think about schizophrenia, depression, severe anxiety, right? Where we're like, oh man, that's like, yo, there's a lot going on there. Versus like what you say, mental fitness. I've used mental wellness, because that's about what are we doing on a normal basis and that's just the everyday person, for your family and your well-being, your work life. It could be for an athlete. What are you doing to keep you, as you said, fit mentally? What are the routines? What are the breathing exercises? Who are you talking to? Because honestly, I've worked with a lot of folks, whether it be NBA, NFL, other leagues, and some of the things that really kind of overwhelm people is their personal life. And that then gets into their head and then impact their performance. But they can't say that to you. They can't say that to everybody because that's what's really going on within them. So I totally agree that, and more teams are. Leagues are doing it. The NBA has tried. The NFL, MLB has tried to really push to a place of not just performance, but mental fitness and mental wellness.
Yeah, I think that will help a lot. And hopefully we are headed in that direction, because I'm torn. I mean, I think it's great that athletes are now, more comfortable talking about their mental challenges and, just not being ready to compete or whatever it may be. And people are also more, willing to hear that out and listen to it and understand it. But at the same time, you don't want just an athlete who doesn't feel like talking to the media today
to use that as an excuse,
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And look, I love sports, and I love seeing people who have trained and worked hard perform at the highest level. I mean, some of the most great, amazing games and experiences that athletes can do is when they are performing at their peak. But once again, going to the term, when they're not mentally fit, right, when they're not mentally at their best, they don't do that. And so, even the thing with Simone today, like, I was disappointed. I was looking forward to that. I was excited to see her and the team perform at that next level. But also at the same time, I don't want her hurt. Because, I mean, gymnastics, she's flipping on like a cell phone. Like, if her mind is not in it, that could really mess her up in her life.
Right. All right, Doc, great stuff. We appreciate the time and the insight.
Thanks for the knowledge.
Hey, look, I appreciate it. Anytime y'all want to do a mental fitness segment, just let me know.
Real talk. We will be in touch, man. Thank you very much.
And Chris needs help because every day he gets beat up on the show and he goes home and doesn't feel good.
Yo, man, take it easy on him, man. Everybody can't be on the same level.
It bees like that sometimes.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you, Dr. James.